It's Masters Week here on Squawk Box, and this morning we are joined by the master of doom and gloom. I see how we're getting into that. Joining us now on the Squawk Newsline, Mark Faber is the editor of the Gloom, Boom, and Doom Report. Mark, it's good to hear from you. Hopefully you can extend some of the comments you've been quoted on in recent weeks that eventually a lot of us are going to be facing the same situation that Cyprus faced. What do you mean, that there's depositors around the world that are going to get a haircut because there's just not enough money to pay everything off?
Well, I think in general what has changed is that the mentality before the crisis in 2007 and after the crisis was, let the taxpayer bail out the system, and now the asset holders will have to contribute. Of course, in the case of banks, first the shareholders, then the bondholders, and then the depositors. And what we've seen in the case of Cyprus, there is a strong redistribution impact in the sense that large depositors are penalized much more than small depositors.
You have made the point that when central banks sort of do a bailout or a bail-in, whatever you want to call it, that wealthy people are really the beneficiaries because they're the asset owners, and that has caused income disparity to get too wide basically around the world, and that sooner or later that's going to have to reverse itself. Is that still what you believe? And how much do you think that the asset owners, what kind of haircut, eventual haircut, will they all take? Will it be 30, 40% globally?
Well, I think I've been thinking about this extensively. I think if you have all your money in the bank, eventually you may lose like 40, 50% or 60%, depending on the quality of the bank and how you hold your deposit. You understand? If you hold, say, a deposit in Singapore dollars, I think that Singapore dollar deposit is relatively safe. But if you hold a US dollar deposit in a Singapore bank, they place it in the interbank market, and that deposit may not be safe. So it will also become an issue, how do you hold cash with the banks? Now you may argue, okay, I don't want to have any money with the banks at all, I keep it all in treasuries. Well, one day the Treasury Department may decide to impose withholding taxes on interest payments to foreigners. Or one day they may print that much money that the treasury market collapses. Or there could be a default. Nobody knows precisely how the game will be played out. But in general, I believe that well-to-do people that benefited from the money printing essentially and the easy monetary policies since the early 1980s, that they will have to give back some of their money, either through taxation or through revolution or through expropriation.
Well, this doesn't sound like, in your view, that we're on the cusp of a secular bull market in equities, or if we are, that there's a day of reckoning. How far off, Mark?
Well, basically, we can't be at the beginning of a bull market because the bull market, as of today, is more than 4 years old. It began on March 6, 2009, and we're now in April 2013. Also, the economic recovery in the U.S. began in June 2009, and we're now 2013, so we're 4 years old into an economic expansion. A very weak one, I may point out, because all the money printing that is going on and the asset purchases by central banks does not lead to the money flowing into the so-called main street, into the ordinary Americans. On the contrary, it hurts the ordinary Americans because prices are going up. But it flows into asset markets. So the corporate sector is very cash-rich because the earnings are at the record. No surprise, since 2000, government debt has grown from $5